Welcome everyone to today's webinar, How Interoperability Supports Healthcare Operations and Learning. Today you will hear from Kevin O'Hara, HealthStream's Senior Vice President of Platform Solutions, as he discusses how HealthStream is leading the way towards improved interoperability in healthcare. So without further ado, let's hear from Kevin.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today. Glad to talk to you about this subject. You are the Senior Vice President here of Platform Solutions at HealthStream. So tell us a little bit about what that involves and how you got brought back to take on this big challenge.
Sure. Yeah, I'd been at HealthStream for 10 years and then was gone for about 9 years running a small surgical analytics company, but had always been interested in coming back to HealthStream and helping build out what we would call our platform. And, we're in 70% of hospitals around the country. And so that opportunity to help other companies build their products, build their businesses on top of that presence was always very compelling for the company. And so what I'm responsible for in Platform Solutions is helping to build out that technology platform that underlies not only our products, but allows our partners and others to build products on top of that. And to take away some of the work that they have to do to get started and really can just focus on the areas that they're specializing in and just build on top of that and get all of the kind of basic infrastructure that you need to distribute products into hospitals.
All right, sounds exciting. I've heard this term interoperability. So I want you to break it down for me and whoever's watching our conversation. What is it and why is it so important?
Sure, yeah, great question. And it really comes out of that platform notion. And so there's really two ways that we think about interoperability. One is interoperability between systems. And so if you think about our own applications and partner applications, and then third-party applications that exist in the hospital, it's enabling those systems to talk to each other. And lots of standards have developed over time that have made that easier. So otherwise you have translation issues. So what my system thinks about a person and what a person's identity is might be different in another system. And so you have to have ways for these systems to talk to each other. And the way that they do that in a more modern way today is via APIs, which are application programming interfaces. And even though you have these APIs and there's standard methods for APIs, you still have to have the kind of the taxonomy, the language underneath that to work together. And so that's really the second layer of it. And so it's systems talking to each other, and then it's what they're talking about. And one of the things that we're really focused on is talking about the same person no matter what system they're in. And so we think about interoperability at the person level. So we have within HealthStream 10 or more applications that we own. And each of those applications has an idea about who Dan is, for instance. And we need all of that to be consistent. So we want to know that Dan Paulus in one system is the same Dan Paulus in another system. And getting to a unique identifier for everyone in all of our systems, and really ultimately for everyone who works in healthcare, is a key focus of ours. And so that way we can exchange data about those individuals and make it much easier for them to be doing what they're really meant to do, which is to deliver care, and not have to spend as much time dealing with paperwork or re-entering data the next time. And so you'll see that manifest in that individual having a portfolio that covers everything they've done across our entire ecosystem. But fundamentally, the interoperability element of that is knowing that Dan is Dan no matter what system they're in, and then extending that to partners and others as well, so that they can talk to us about the same Dan, and we know it's you, and we can pull all of that data together.
In reality, if I'm a CEO or a healthcare leader and I come in on any given day, am I trying to figure out what a dashboard is and how they do or don't connect? That feels like a big pain point. Am I wrong?
It's really kind of amazing how I would say almost low the state of the art is and how many of these problems have yet to been solved. So there is, if you look at the physician side of things, and for some advanced practice practitioners, there is what's called the NPI. So it's a National Provider Identifier. And that exists, so you can try to tie all these people together. And most systems will talk about someone's NPI, whether it's insurance systems or HR systems, but that doesn't cover everyone who works in healthcare. It's in fact only covers a portion of it. So there's been a long time effort to create what's called a universal nursing identifier. And for some reason, it's never really caught fire. It's something we're very interested in. And then even with that, you still have large numbers of people who work in allied health professions and other areas that are still not covered by that. And so you have, as you're indicating, yeah, if I'm a CEO coming in, I've got multiple systems. I want these systems to talk to each other. There's lots of layers of interoperability. So they want to be able to talk to each other about the same patient, for instance. They want to be able to have their machines talk to each other. So you have diagnostic equipment, you have lab equipment, that needs to talk to your EHR. There are just layers and layers of these interoperability problems. We at HealthStream are really primarily focused first on this identity because we're in the business of supporting the people that deliver care, and so that's core to what we do. But there's many other layers of interoperability. One other area where we do support interoperability is there are certain medical devices that you need to be trained on and be cleared on before you can use them. And we have systems that we work with that are interoperable with our learning management system that allow people to be trained on those devices with a course in our system. And then we automatically communicate with systems that allow those devices to be turned on for that user. And that's a different layer of interoperability, but one we're very excited about. It's very healthcare specific. You're not going to find that in a generic LMS. And it's something that, again, takes advantage of kind of our breadth of knowledge across the healthcare continuum.
Is that like an auto credentialing almost happening, to your point, within the system, because they need to be trained on it, they need to be validated, and then they have access to it, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things we're very excited about because it's actually in the workflow of what's going on in the hospital, and it ties back to the training and education. And so in order to unlock that device, you've got to have taken that course, and all of that, again, requires communication about who that individual is, what they're credentialed to do. So yes.
We're here to improve the quality of healthcare, and we focus on developing the people who deliver the care. How does this impact the day-to-day of nurses and nursing life, right? I mean, there's obviously an impact in terms of staffing here. So speak to that a little bit, because I know everybody's thinking about that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, recruiting and retaining your top talent is incredibly important, very hard today. And at multiple levels of that, really understanding what someone's experience has been, where they've worked, their competency, the training that they've had, their credentials, all of that is necessary to both identify and retain your top talent. And also bring in new talent. And so, again, our goal is to, in the shorthand I use, to be healthcare's people platform. So anything you need to know about someone who works in healthcare, you should be able to find out from our platform. And that just takes a lot of the friction out of all of those hiring and retention and promotion processes. Because, again, this is data that should be known once and be able to be used many times. So you went to the University of Illinois, that should be known once. You went to the University of Illinois once, you've always gone to the University of Illinois. The number of times that people need to re-enter information about, say, their education history, about their work history, about their credentials, it's really kind of staggering. It's like, calling a support line and being asked to put in your account number and then having the operator get on the line and ask you for your account number.
Yeah,
I mean, that happens constantly. And, it adds cognitive overhead to what you're trying to do in your day-to-day job. And so anything we can do to take that out of it, we think makes the life of a clinician easier, makes the life of the folks that are recruiting clinicians and trying to retain clinicians easier, and ultimately allows you to identify top talent and figure out the things that you need to do to help them to move on to the next level as well.
So we're addressing kind of the efficiency of the process for HR folks, for CNOs, for everybody to be looking at one record rather than trying to aggregate this from all different places, basically what you're saying.
Correct,
Right?
yeah.
Okay. All right. And then how does this make the nursing staff feel, do you think? I mean, to your point, having to enter something 14 times is a bit frustrating, and they have a full-time job to do. So have we gotten any anecdotal feedback about, what this opportunity is and how it makes people feel better?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything you can do to make someone's day-to-day easier, I think is important, and what we see is that if you provide this information to the end users, you also have an opportunity to, congratulate them, to provide praise, to give them kudos for the work that they're doing. And so again, rather than having to go find that information, if that information is kind of brought to you automatically, which is really what we're focused on. So it's very different for you to have to go and enter information about a class you just took or work that you've done with an association. If we can automatically surface that for you because of the network and the ecosystem we've built, then not only do you not have to go do that, but it automatically shows up to your managers, it shows up to the executives in the organization, and they have an opportunity to react to that. And so, yeah, at multiple levels. One, taking that load off of you and saying, we as an employer, care about you, care about your long-term history, care about helping you develop your own portfolio, which showcases the work you've done and the extra effort that you've put in, is all something that we hear positive feedback on all the time. It also gives you an opportunity as the employer to make sure that your employees are getting what they need. They're getting the credentials they need, they're getting the certifications they need. You can identify gaps and then bring opportunities to your staff to go meet those needs.
So I'm thinking in my head, LinkedIn comes to mind, as a point of truth, right, for most people's career. Is that kind of what you're alluding to, or that direction, I guess? And when we think about big data or, cloud technology or AI, is this what we're...
Yeah, there is definitely the concept of a portfolio being something like, LinkedIn for healthcare.
Okay.
Except imagine that if LinkedIn was automatically populated rather than you needing to go in and put that information in it.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing. So we're providing a lot of the plumbing in the background to be able to automatically populate your portfolio, which would be akin to LinkedIn. But it covers a much broader expanse than LinkedIn might, because it includes, again, certifications, licenses, credentials, your competencies. And so it's really pulling all of that together for you automatically. So imagine logging into LinkedIn and it already knows all of that about you and you haven't had to add it.
Talk about this from a healthcare perspective specifically. We only work in healthcare, right? How is interoperability and what you're trying to do with the platform? I saw you give a presentation to our investors where you talked about the different lanes for our different divisions that we have and the benefits that are coming out of that. Unpack that a little bit for us so we can kind of see the roadmap moving forward.
Sure. Just in our own corner of the universe, again, we have 10 applications. We cover learning and development, we cover credentialing and privileging, we cover scheduling. All of those applications should be talking to each other automatically as well, so that our customers have this healthcare specific sort of people stack of applications that all work together. So that information I learn about someone's learning history and their competencies can be used in the scheduling process. And so again, we're building this platform, this fabric underneath all of those that allow our applications first to all communicate with each other and make all of those applications better. So rather than just doing basic scheduling, we're doing competency-based scheduling. And so then you take that and you start to extend that out again to other applications, to allow other applications to both add information into that system to make all of those systems smarter, but also allow them to get information out of those systems to make their own systems smarter as well.
Okay. And I know we've just introduced a developer portal as part of this. Is that part of the API plugin piece that you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. So in order to tap into the entire ecosystem, you want to make your APIs publicly available so that developers of other applications, customer systems can come and see what it is that they need to do to integrate with your system. So this changes the model from point-to-point integrations where you'd have to, actually meet with them, have handshakes, have the whole discussion, build very special endpoints, to making it something that can be many to many. So as long as a developer goes and looks at our documentation, they can write to our application and integrate with our application. We can build the APIs once and then have that work with many applications. And so the developer portal is really a key part of that and is a real key advance for HealthStream to get our APIs out there and into the hands of our customer developers, our partner developers, and then third parties who just want to build applications on top of our network.
Super quick, hStream is the identifier, right? For a HealthStream customer, that's going to allow you to be on the platform and have this interoperability, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Your hStream ID is essentially your passport. It's a single identifier that exists in our system, ties you together. We want every individual human who works in healthcare to have one and only one hStream ID that follows them across their entire career and across all of these applications.
Okay. And challenges. What are you up against, to make this happen? I know there's a lot of infrastructure in healthcare. So just quickly, top three challenges you think you're wrestling with.
Yeah, I mean, the top challenge is just very basic challenges. Your Dan Paulus, your Daniel Paulus, your Daniel W. Paulus, you move around.
Yep.
And so just getting that nailed down to identify, how do we get one of you in the system? We have tens of millions of records in our system. We've been at this for nearly 30 years. And so we've got a lot of that to do. So just basic data matching, just kind of blocking and tackling. I would say second is the user experience. So how do you, as Dan, understand what the hStream ID is and how it works across the entire system, the value of that to get you bought into it. And then finally, it's having all these systems adjust to begin to recognize that standard ID. And so to begin to use it and take advantage of it rather than just sort of staying in their own silos. So those are probably the top three challenges that we're seeing.
Okay. Plenty of work ahead for you and your team.
Always
Right,
plenty
right,
of work.
Right. What about, bring us home, Kevin, with the opportunity that you see here on the horizon? I could guess at some things, but just making life easier for so many people with this singular, sign. And what do you think as you're telling people why we're investing in this and how it's going to make their lives and business better?
Sure. I mean, it has incredible upside for everybody. Obviously, all of our systems working together makes all of them more powerful, and our ability to then extend that to customers and partners makes their systems more valuable as well. And so what we really want to do is provide this foundation for many, many other applications to develop without having to do the 30 years of hard work that we've done to get plugged into 70% of US hospitals, to get their data feeds, and just build on top of that. I mean, there is no reason why we need to rebuild or have new emerging companies rebuild what we've built over the last 30 years. And so to me, that's the most exciting opportunity, is to enable innovation across the entire ecosystem and not have this tax that people have to pay of all the basic work that needs to get done. We've already done that. We've invested 30 years in it, and we want others to take advantage of that.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for spending time helping explain this for us. We appreciate all the work you're doing, Kevin.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, I want to drill down a little bit on this singular use case kind of thing. And we talk about the analogy, or what comes to mind for me is kind of LinkedIn as a profile. Is that relevant to what we're talking about? Similar, but maybe a little different? That's more job hunting behavior, right? But we're trying to do something a little different, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about wanting to pull together a portfolio of everything you've done over time and tell a story about it, which is a lot of what LinkedIn is about as well, we're doing that. And so the key to that is starting with this unique identifier and then being able to plug that into many systems. The difference with LinkedIn is if you imagine that LinkedIn automatically did that for you. So imagine if LinkedIn was plugged into your HR system and your competency system and other systems and could pull all that data for you together. That's what we're doing. And so you see that in healthcare, it's a little bit different. You've got most of the people that work in healthcare have a professional license. And that professional license needs to be kept up to date. There's continuing education you need. Those professional licenses are maintained, the records around those are maintained by state boards, and we're able to go out and collect what's called primary source verification data about those licenses. And so that's different than LinkedIn as well, because LinkedIn is sort of my story about myself. Yeah. What we're doing is pulling together a fully validated story about you, which is important both because of the regulatory environment for healthcare and because these things they're just different. It's different to say that I've got a license, I've got a certification, and then people want to know that those are accurate. There are people who work in hospitals whose entire job is calling up or going to the websites of state boards of nursing, of state boards of occupational therapy, and verifying people's licenses. And we've heard from them the automation that we bring to that. What it does is it frees them up to do higher level work. So no one wants to be going and calling these folks and finding this out. We do that automatically. We have APIs in the background that go call on that, and we offer that to our customers. We offer it in systems where it doesn't normally happen, like a learning management system. What that allows someone who's working in the hospital to do, who's already doing 4 jobs, and that's only one of them, is to kind of move up the ladder and do other work. And so was talking to someone at a hospital the other day. They spent probably half their day doing this type of work. And then the other half of the day was on the type of work that had to do with, how do we help Dan develop his career? they're able to shift all of that work they were doing on the mundane things of going to websites and making phone calls, and now moving that to, organizational and talent development. And so that's really powerful for us.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hearing automated, validated profile in some ways, right? If that's a really
Correct.
short way to say, okay,
Yep.
excellent. That's super helpful, and I can see how that would make so many people's lives so much easier. I want you to talk a little bit more about maybe an anecdotal story of what this looks like when it's working well. Like, do we have a customer we've partnered with or started to partner with on the developer portal that is seeing these systems start to talk to each other and making the CEO's life and the leadership's lives easier because they've got the data in front of them now and they're connecting the dots?
Yeah, I mean, we have started to see some great work using our APIs to work what we do into the regular workflow in a hospital. So one example of that would be a new hire is made. In the past, you would have to wait to do a file upload to get that person in our system, or someone would need to go key them in. That HR system can automatically call our system and create that user in our system, so they're up and running right away. Often, as part of the onboarding process, that person is then automatically assigned courses that they need to take so that they can use the badging system, for instance. So you don't really think about this, but on day one, I need to go in and badge myself in or get into the time and attendance system. We have customers that will not allow someone to get their badge until they've taken that training. Okay. More critically, they often won't let them get on a shift until they've trained on the EHR. And so if you think about that, we now have integrations in our system that will automatically queue our system and say, or call our system and say, has Dan completed his time and attendance training? If yes, activate his badge. Has Dan completed his EHR training? If yes, activate his ability to get put on a shift. Those things would have required someone in the hospital to be making phone calls, to be going in and running reports. All of that now just churns along in the background and makes that happen. And so that is real interoperability between systems, because now you're talking about 3 or 4 systems that all have to talk to each other, and it doesn't require anybody to go type in any information, to pull any reports. It all just happens in the background. And now you've made it much more efficient for someone to get up and running, to get onboarded at a facility. And so some of the largest health systems in the country have had those challenges, and now they've resolved those challenges in working with us and working with our APIs, accessing those through the developer portal. So that's very exciting for everybody involved.
Yeah, and there's safety and compliance issues at the core of this too, right? To your point of people need to be trained before they get access to be on the floor, right?
Exactly.
So this is fascinating stuff.
And from a developer standpoint, just to be clear, it's not only courses that exist in our system, but we have third-party partners whose education doesn't even run on our learning management system, who are now also able to enter activity onto this transcript. And so one of the things that our customers see HealthStream as is this universal transcript across everything that happens with respect to learning and development. And that has been realized because third-party partners who might have a mobile learning application can also put completions or activity on their applications directly into the HealthStream system, which can again trigger some of this behavior. So one of the largest health systems in the country is working with us on a rollout of their new EHR system, and that's being done through multiple different modes of education, including some third-party applications that do not run directly within our learning management system, but run on our platform and in our ecosystem more broadly construed. And so it's very exciting to see all these points of data coming together.
Very exciting, like really improving the quality of healthcare, I think, when we talk about it, which we're all about doing here, right?
Correct.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
That is all the time we have for today. I would like to thank Kevin for sharing his insights, and thank you to HealthStream for sponsoring today's webinar.